Okay, hey, today's guest here is Bob Burg, author of the Go Giver Philosophy and Referral Sales. Great to have you here, Bob.
Thank you. What a pleasure to be with you.
Yeah. Maybe in a nutshell, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the main central theme in your work is perhaps that uh, it's not about persuasion, but perhaps more about, consistently, creating value and trust. Would that be a fair description of your main thesis?
Well, it always depends how you define terms.
Yeah,
So I see persuasion as something very positive. Persuasion
yeah,
is one form of influence. Influence by definition is the ability to move a person or persons to a desired action, usually within the
yeah,
context of a specific goal. There are two ways to do this. There's through persuasion, which is positive, and there's
yeah,
manipulation, which is
yeah,
negative. Okay. Uh, when we do it through persuasion, it always considers the good of everyone involved and
yeah,
results in everyone coming out better off afterwards than they were beforehand.
yeah,
So that is very much a defining philosophy. In John's and my book, The Go Giver, we would say the premise is that when you shift your focus from getting to giving, and when we say giving in this context, we simply mean constantly and consistently providing immense value to
yeah,
others, right? And understanding that doing so is not only a more fulfilling way of conducting business, it's the most financially profitable way as
yeah,
well.
yeah,
Now you're really on the right track, and you're really
yeah,
looking to bring value in such a way that everyone is a winner.
yeah. That's a very good way of framing it. And I'm sure that the biggest misconception typically is that giving things in the beginning that you are basically doing charity, but that's not at all the case.
Right, exactly. That's a great point that you make. Yeah, it's not about
Yeah,
charity is a wonderful thing, but that's not what this is about. It's about providing
yeah,
value to other, right?
yeah. So basically, when we think about your philosophy and how it applies to what we're doing here at Relefy, because we believe that the world is abundant of information and capital and talent and all of that. But what would you say is the biggest reason why the right people and ideas don't connect with each other?
The reason why some of the best ideas don't connect.
I mean, the people don't, get to meet each other. That might be, useful for each other, be they, investors or founders or somebody with
Oh,
very
yeah.
valuable talent.
Well, I mean, because the relationships haven't been formed. And
Yeah,
one of the key concepts that John and I talk about in the Go Giver is what we call the golden rule of
yeah,
business, of sales, of networking, if you will. And that
yeah,
is that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those
yeah,
people they know, like, and trust.
yeah, true.
So a lot of times, you may have a great idea, great product,
Yeah,
great service, great, but if you cannot, if the relationships aren't there that are going to allow you to connect with the people who can be good
yeah,
partners for you, it's just not going to happen. Now we might say, well,
yeah,
is that fair? Well, it's reality.
yeah. Yeah, it's very true. You have to trust people and preferably know them also. And a lot of sales is to getting to that position first, where you at least know each other and trust each other. What would you say is the fastest route to build trust? Is it more a question of character or more a question of showing your skills?
Well, that's a wonderful question. Is trust about character or is it about competence? It's about both.
Yeah,
Stephen M.R. Covey, son of Dr. Stephen Covey, who wrote Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. Stephen M.R. Covey wrote the classic, The Speed of Trust.
yeah,
And what he said is, in the subtitle, trust, it's the one thing that changes everything, right?
yeah,
And he talked about trust being based on two concepts, character and competence.
yeah,
If we can believe someone is very able, very good at what they do, But if we believe their character is faulty, if their reputation says this is not a person who, does things the right way and does,
Yeah.
if there's something really at stake for us, we're not going to, want to associate in that way. On the other hand, this person can be a very, very high character, but
Yeah.
if they don't have the competence and the ability to be able, well, that's also, something. So now here's the thing though. Between character and competence, they're both important, but I'd say that there's a lot more competence out there than there necessarily is character.
Yeah, it certainly feels that way.
Yeah, it's not that there aren't a lot of people with high character, it's that there are a lot of people who don't. And so, whereas competence, competence is something that there's a lot of really good, competent people out there. So, so like anything in economics, the basic law of supply and demand, when there's a high demand for something, let's say of character, but there's a lower supply, well, the price of it, the value of it, the worth of that goes way high. So that person develops a reputation of exquisite character. Wow. That's a person who makes themselves valuable. Now, in Mr. Covey's book, he makes a few points. May I read a couple of little quotes from
sure, of course,
very important. He says, you can have all the facts and figures, all the supporting evidence, all the endorsement that you want, but if you don't command trust, you won't get anywhere.
Yeah.
Wow. I think that's now he says, and I love this one. Take communication. In a high trust relationship, you can say the wrong thing and people will still get your meaning, right? Because they know who you are. They know you're right. In a low trust relationship, you can be very measured, even precise, and they'll still misinterpret you.
Yeah.
Wow. And then just one more. And I think this one is so very powerful. This was said by Gandhi. The moment there is suspicion about a person's motives, everything he does becomes tainted.
Yeah.
So really see that, trust is, and again, the book is The Speed of Trust, the one thing that changes everything by Stephen M. Covey. We really see how important that character part, again, competence and character both, but we see how special that special gem, is when it comes to character.
Yeah. So it's quite, obvious that you need both, competence and character to establish trust. But competence, that's something that you can improve very easily by, education. But how do you feel about character? Can you improve one's character, not just, your reputation, but character in itself?
Yeah, I mean, I think people can adjust. I think people can amend. Do people really change? The jury's still out on that one. I've seen people make real good, changes in their life, though those changes might be more adjustments than changes.
Yeah.
But I think that if someone is motivated enough and knows that, maybe the way I've been living my life isn't the most productive way and the way that makes me feel good about myself, they're willing to kind of to look at. But I think that's a lot tougher change,
it is in a way, but also that book you mentioned, that 7 Habits of Successful People.
His father wrote 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. Yes.
Yeah. So that book, I'm hoping that I'm not mixing it with some other book, but at least he talks about many things, like in a verb form, like love that you just start doing things in a certain way, and eventually you do alter yourself perhaps in a way. Do you believe that's possible, just starting to act in a way of great character, and eventually you will develop good character if you do it?
Again, I think people have the capacity to, or someone actually does it. But yes, the way to do it is to just start doing it. One of my favorite books, I was just speaking with someone about it. It was written, I think it was published in 1959 by Dr. David Schwartz. He was the author, The Magic of Thinking Big. And
Yeah.
he was the first person from whom I learned. It was one of the first books I read, and this was 40 years ago when I first got into sales. It was
Yeah.
one of the first books I read that talked about how action precedes feeling.
Yeah.
You don't have to wait to feel a certain way before acting that way. It's
Yeah.
probably never going to happen if you do that. Okay.
Yeah.
Better to just act the way you want to feel and
Yeah.
act your way into feeling that way.
Yeah. I think that's a very good rule to live by. It is a lot. It
Yeah.
leads to a more proactive life.
Well, you think about it. If you have a project to get done, right?
Yeah.
And you've got another 4 or 5 hours of work on this thing, and you just
Yeah.
don't feel like doing it.
Yeah.
You say, well, let's see, I think, and it's due in the next day, right? And it's like, well, let's
Yeah.
see, should I wait until I feel like doing it?
Yeah.
No, probably not going to happen.
Yeah,
But
it really does.
sit
Yeah.
down, get straight, and you get in front of the thing, and you start, yes, I'm going to, and you
Yeah.
start doing it. Well, now you're going to work your way into that feeling.
Yeah, true. You will improve your mood quite fast if you're a salesperson, procrastinating at, I wouldn't want to start calling, customers, but after your fifth or sixth call, feel a different way already.
Yeah, perhaps I also have a question here I would like to ask. But first, let me acknowledge how much important your statements have been. I've been able to follow some of your videos on social media.
Oh, thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
First of all, I saw one quote which was added on the Relefy media, which said that people like to work with other people who they know, like, and trust.
Okay.
Which is absolutely true, but it's somehow bitter to other people who don't understand this principle. So I'm still heading there. But number two, yes, please.
Yeah, let me address that first, if I may. So I'm often quoted with that, but that quote's actually incomplete. It's not your fault. It's just that's how people quote it, that people like to do business with people they know. Like, well, yeah, I like a lot of things, but you don't get to have it. I mean, so it's not the full same. People would like to do, but no, it's all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. Okay,
Absolutely.
there's a difference there, right? So what that says is, if things are equal or close enough to equal, it's going to be the relationship that does it. But if things aren't close to equal, if they're not close enough, no, then it's not necessarily, it's going to be that person who they can do business with, not who they necessarily like to. So that's why the relationship is so important, and why that first part of it is so very important. But I see myself quoted with that all the time, and I just want to say, nah, it's not quite it. There's more to it than that. But life is life,
Yeah.
The grass on the internet,
Yeah.
What was your
Definitely.
second question, Ezekiel? I apologize for interrupting.
Yes, thank you so much. And actually, you have already answered the first part of my question. Thank you for that. So the second part was that I believe around this philosophy of go giver, this is where you establish the real trust, when people feel like you are more interested into giving them rather than taking from them. But my question is, how do you differentiate from being a go-giver, from giving others advantage over you? Because I know people that gave their time, gave their energy. At the end of the day, those people that received, they took advantage of them and they discredit them. They remove them from the equation. How do you, take care of this situation?
Yeah, excellent question. So the first thing that I would assure everyone is that there is nothing about being a go-giver that is congruent with you being taken advantage of, or anyone's doormat, or a martyr, or self-sacrificial. Okay. It's simply understanding why it's so important to make your focus the value you are providing another person. Okay. How that creates the relationship and the desire for that person to understand why it's in their best interest to do business with you. If you are giving value to someone who you find is what we would call a go taker, right? Someone who's just take someone who's maybe doesn't have that high character we were talking about. Well, you just don't work with them. Now, if there's someone who you need to work with because you're involved in some kind of situation where you're careful. You make sure that you don't put yourself in a position to be taken advantage of, that you protect yourself. We're being a go-giver is not about, not dealing in reality, right? And so, so it's just understanding that focus, that importance, that why it's so important to create value for others.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. A lot of the ideas in the Go Giver and your book Endless Referrals also, it's perhaps easiest to understand from an individual's perspective, but I've understood that a lot of your ideas have been applied to all kinds of things. I even saw that you had a book about the Go Giver for marriage. But one thing, how would you put this into to system level, not just on individual level, but how can organizations incorporate this mindset in all of their doing, perhaps even outside of sales too?
Yes, and first, my co-author John David Mann and his lovely wife Anna, they wrote the Go Giver Marriage.
Yeah, okay, he's supposed to them, yeah.
And it's half parable and half how to, and they did a beautiful job with that. As far as how the Go Giver philosophy itself applies to companies and organizations, as opposed to just individuals, that's where culture comes in, right? And so, do you have a company culture that is about the Go Giver way?
Yeah.
Right? Do you have people understanding that this is the way to do business, or not, right? And so, if a culture and we know that while you can lead to a certain point from any position within a company, a culture begins at the top and it works its way down. Okay. So to the degree that you have company leadership buying into the Go Giver philosophy, and teaching it, rewarding it, making sure that that's the degree to which you're going to have a team of people business that way. Yeah.
I think that, on an organizational level, what's might be one of the biggest challenge might be, because one of the most obvious benefits from your philosophy compared to others is the referrals that you will get. So let's take that I'm in a large sales team, and one client trusts me and gives me a referral to his friend. So that client trusts me personally, but in a large organization that that referral might belong to an account that's managed by a co-worker. So there's a slight ethical dilemma, because the trust has been established with me individually, not necessarily with the organization or my co-worker who might be, who knows about him.
Well, exactly. This is why it's so very important for the culture to buy into the entire philosophy. And then what happens is this person who is the salesperson, who let's say is able to land the account, then very easy for them to transition this person, into the servicing end by letting them know, these people are wonderful. This guy George or this person Mary, she's going to take fantastic care of you. You're going to, and then making the introduction and making them feel welcome in the process. In the we don't call it onboarding a client, we call it welcoming a client, and making sure that they feel welcome and that they're part of it and that they know they can. So again, this is why the culture is so important, because exactly as you said, this salesperson can be fantastic, you're a real go-giver, but if they don't have control, and they don't have control. So if they are having to hand it off to a company, what's going to happen? They're going to lose the client. They're certainly not going to get referrals, and they're going to make themselves look bad. So that's why it's so important and that's why it behooves the organization as a whole to be a, that type of organization.
Yeah. Because it sounds, very obvious, a lot of, the ideas of the go-giver and perhaps that to create a go-giver culture in any, organization. But still, a lot of companies do, they are not able to do it. What would you say is the, main, challenge or perhaps misconception, what many
Yeah.
organizations, yeah,
Challenges and misconceptions. I think you're right with both of them. The biggest challenge is, everyone is run by their own set of beliefs.
Yeah.
Right. And it's a belief system. It's a way they see the world as operating. Right. And where did they learn this? Well, they learned it from a combination of upbringing, environment, schooling, news media.
Yeah.
People they've had mentor them, right. So if somebody's brought up in a world where it's, business is about stepping on other people's toes and, well, that's how they're going to, and they don't know that they're any different. And if they're not open to changing the way they do things, well, they're going to keep doing the same thing.
Yeah.
On the other hand, once someone understands, and here's the thing, it really, when you think about it, it is very logical. One thing I used to say to when I was on the road speaking to large sales organizations, I'd often start out my talk by saying, nobody's going to buy from you because you have a quota to meet.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're not going to buy from you because you have a sales goal or because you need the money or because your sales manager is pressuring you to get the sale. And they're not even going to do business with you just because you're a really nice person. They're going to do business with you because they believe that they'll be better off by doing so than by not doing so.
Yeah.
Now, people, when I say that, they'll say, well, so are you saying that a sales team shouldn't have a quota, shouldn't have a goal, I'm not saying they should or shouldn't do anything. I'm just saying that nobody's going to buy from them because of their goal or their quotas.
That's very true.
So what they've got to do is they've got to have a culture where they're totally focused on discovering how their prospective customers and clients see their product or services being of value. Yeah. And they totally focus on that. Now, there's nothing particularly complicated about that philosophy. Yeah. I mean, why would anybody buy from us for our reasons?
Yeah.
They're buying for their reasons.
Yeah.
So,
that's very true.
And with all that's been written about this, I mean, not from me, but from all the, from the magnitude of books out there by successful leaders and salespeople and organizations who all say this, the same basic thing. It's all about the other person, right? It's all about finding out what their situation is. How do people still not get it? I don't know, but so that's how it is. That's again reality.
Yeah. It's interesting. Also, you mentioned those quotas and things like that. So would you say that incentives, how that's structured, could you still somehow affect how go-giver philosophy is applied in sales organizations by planning your incentives accordingly?
Well, I mean, incentives are a part of life, and that's very human. And there's certainly nothing wrong with that as long as incentives reward the right things.
Yeah.
We've seen all too often where incentives, in the States, we had a situation, a very well-known situation years ago with Wells Fargo, one of our biggest banks, where their incentives basically rewarded them for doing very wrong things.
Yeah.
And, that really came back to haunt them. It cost them reputation, money, time, and whatever, which it should have. Okay. Yeah. So if you do incentivize the wrong things, you're going to get the wrong results. That's human nature. Okay. Yeah. But as far as, when we talk about quotas or goals, again, those are fine for what they are. But a lot of times, those are actually out of that sphere of what is in your control. Okay. Yeah. But what's in your control? The actions you take.
Yeah.
So to me, the key performance indicators, the calls you make, research you do, the way you go about this, those you can control. To me, those are what should be looked at, and those should be the focus, as opposed to the goal, which doesn't mean you shouldn't have a goal. Again, I'm not saying that at all. Goals are great. I have goals. We have. But it's understanding that the goal itself is simply the result, right?
Yeah.
Doing the things correctly in the process. You simply cannot control the goal. You can control the system you use in order to take the correct actions to accomplish that goal.
Yeah. Very well said.
Yeah, but perhaps I also have a top-up question there, especially you have been discussing about selling. I recall now I listened one of your video that you had an interview. I don't remember the person who was interviewing you, but you gave an example that negativity is selling quicker, faster. You gave an example, said during COVID, people rushed to the shops to buy toilet papers because the more you publish, the shops are running out of toilet paper. That's how everyone else is rushing to buy. So my question is, if you take into consideration the go giver principle, yes, it builds the bond, but you don't establish trust overnight. You establish trust over time. But with negativity, you can sell overnight. If you succeed to bringing the negative news, it can just go viral like that. So how do we manage this? Is it about character? Is it about a strategy? Should I sell using advantage of negativity, or should I take time to build trust using this go giver principle? How would you advise me?
So it kind of that goes kind of deep. When do you use negativity in the sales process? Well, there are times when, depending upon what you're selling, where not only does your prospective customer need to know what advantage they'll gain by doing business with you, but they also have to be aware of what they lose by not doing business with you.
Yeah.
And this is where asking questions is so important. This is where the discovery and asking the right questions is so important, because if you ask somebody, what they would see, if you were to do business together, what would they see as fantastic results 6 months from now if all went, exactly right? That's wonderful. But there's nothing wrong with also asking the question, and if nothing changed between now and 6 months, where do you see things? Oh, well, we were, would not, we'd be out, but whatever. Okay, so that's okay. It's are you doing it in a way that's helpful, or are you doing it in a way that's manipulative and so forth? Are you being honest? Are you, and I think that's where it comes in. So I don't think we need to in any way rule out sharing with someone, where it's obviously in their best interest to do business. And how it might harm them by not. So I don't think there's anything about that is anti go giver, so long as you're doing it with the right mindset.
Yeah. We are soon running out of time. Now when we live here in the age of AI and everything, so I have to have one question about that, because a lot of your principles are quite timeless. And technology and AI is typically used to increase volume, and perhaps how do you see in this age, what do we have to focus on now to make sure that our relationships are really valuable and not just increasing in numbers due to technological advancements?
Yeah, and I think with AI, it is, as we've seen with any technology that comes in, people tend to, not all people, but a certain amount of people want to think that the technology itself can replace the relationship.
Yeah.
And it does. Okay. Yeah. Use the technology to enhance the relationship.
Yeah.
If you can make the customer or client experience much smoother and less frictional by using AI, wonderful.
Yeah.
But if that AI takes the relationship away, you're going to lose business from it.
Yeah.
So we use it. It's like, the old saying, use money and love people. Don't love money and use people, right? It's the same thing. Love people, use technology. Right.
Yeah.
and I think it comes down to that. But sure, AI very, very powerful, and it's going to be very helpful for those who already and are willing to do the right things in the process.
Yeah.
It's the people who think that AI is going to replace the relationship.
Yeah.
They're the people who I think are in for a rude awakening.
Yeah, true. Those who use it to enhance their relationship and perhaps to understand better how you can, offer value.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, perhaps I can also ask the last question, as briefly as you would love to explain. I'm interested to know who inspired you towards this idea of Go Giver, and maybe what event happened, to make you grasp this and strongly believe in it.
Well, I mean, I was very fortunate to be brought up by really wonderful people. My mom and dad, to me, they embodied the principles of the Go Giver. And John David Mann, my co-author, he says the same thing about his parents. So, we both had that foundation. I think one of the greatest Go Giver lessons I ever learned, though, was from a gentleman who was working in a company where I was selling. He wasn't in the sales department. I think he was an engineer, but he was one of these kind of older guys who didn't say much, but whenever he said anything, it was always very profound. And I was in a sales slump, and I had, he kind of heard me complaining about it, and I was really focused on getting out of the slump. I lost my focus on helping the customer, which was what we get out of the slump, right? But he took me aside and he said, Burg, he said, if you want to make a lot of money in sales, he said, don't have making money as your target. Your target is serving others. Now, when you hit the target, he said, you'll get a reward, and that reward will come in the form of money, and you can do with that money whatever you choose. But never forget, the money is simply the reward for hitting the target. It's not the target itself. Your target is serving others.
I like that one.
Yeah. And what that said to me was that when it comes right down to it, great salesmanship is never, and great leadership, is never about the salesperson or the leader, right? It's never about the product or service, as important as those are. That's never what the sale is about. It's about the other person. It's about that person whose life you're trying to add value to, or we can even perhaps more accurately say, it's about that other person whose life becomes better just because you are part of it. And I think that when we operate, whether as a salesperson or a leader, what have you, when we operate from that foundational premise, now we're really 9 steps ahead of the game in a 10-step game.
Yeah. I think that was awesome. That was an excellent, ending remarks that's very applicable to our audience also. Somebody who is, building a business, just, understand the target is not necessarily, sales or getting investors or things like that. It's just, improving the lives of as many people as possible. And that will make you, make you successful or not.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Bob.
Yes,
it was awesome.
Thank you so much.
Having you here.
Oh, my pleasure. I thank you both for having me on as your guest, and I wish you both and your entire audience a fantastic day and much continued success.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Yes. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.